Welcome to this episode of Crossroad Connection. My name is Art Van Walde and I'm your host. And today I have the privilege of introducing to us Brian Vork. Brian Vork is the Executive Director of 70x7 Life Recovery. Welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Brian, I know our listeners are hearing us right now and they're wondering, okay, 70x7, isn't there something in the Bible about that? And what in the world is 70x7?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because yes, obviously the name 70x7 is based on Matthew 18, verses 21 through 22, where Peter asked Jesus how many times we should forgive somebody, and Peter said 7 times, and Jesus said no, 70x7. So our name is meant to illustrate the fact that we get that God gives us unlimited number of chances for reconciliation, and that's really where the name comes from.
Okay. So this is a ministry of reconciliation.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what is the main mission of 70x7? Who is it trying to bring reconciliation for?
Well, first of all, we work with individuals who have felonies in their background.
Okay.
Some of the individuals we work with are just getting out of prison or jail. Others have had older felonies that have been a barrier to employment and general success in life. So that's who we work with. Our mission is to provide dignity, purpose, and hope to that population. And dignity...
I love these words. Dignity, okay.
Dignity is the opportunity to get employment and provide for themselves instead of being a drain on the system. Purpose is to figure out what God intended them to be, and that mainly occurs through the mentoring relationship that we provide. We ask believers to come alongside our individuals that we're working with and to basically become a friend, a mentor, a coach to them, and it gives them the opportunity to share their own testimony throughout the course of that relationship developing. And then hope that my tomorrow doesn't have to be the same as my yesterday. Oftentimes people in prison, coming out of jail or prison, people are labeled. And unfortunately society likes to tie our past to our identity. And one of the things that we really work on doing is getting individuals to truly believe that tomorrow can look better than yesterday.
I love that word hope. Our listeners will discover now when this is being taped, because I'm going to tell them that, this coming Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent. And traditionally in Advent, the first Sunday is the Sunday of hope. And so I was planning worship this morning with my worship director, and we were talking about this word hope and how hopeless so many people are today and in society and with what's going on in the world. And people need hope. Hope
Absolutely.
To move on, hope to grow, hope to move forward. And as Christians, we know that hope is found in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you bring that up, because what society doesn't understand is that when people feel hopeless, they do desperate things. Desperate things often involve illegal things, immoral things. There's victims. It's just society, we have to have hope, or there's only bad things can happen.
Yes, we do need hope. And again, that's why I love that the first Sunday of Advent is hope, because our hope comes through Jesus Christ. And that's what we celebrate on Christmas Day, that Christ came into the world to save us from our sins, but through that salvation, he's giving us hope for a future.
Absolutely.
Brian, talk to us about this ministry. Talk to us about some of the people that you are coming in contact with and what this ministry is doing for them.
Well, we currently have 3 offices in Ottawa County. I'm sorry, 2 offices in Ottawa County. We have an office in Holland, and we also have an office in Grand Haven. And then we have 1 office in Allegan County, which serves the Allegan County area. What we typically are getting is individuals who are looking for employment. What they really need is hope. And what they really need is to start a new life, a fresh life. So we offer employment and mentoring to individuals who have felonies. Nobody ever comes to us looking for a mentor. Okay, they're looking for a job.
Yes.
We've made a condition of their employment that they'll accept a mentor. And typically what happens is an individual will work alongside a mentor, and gradually somebody figured out one day that when somebody's coming out of prison, you need to be able to answer 2 questions before you can make any progress with them. One is, do you care about me? 2, can I trust you? And really that mentoring relationship is breaking down those barriers and breaking down those walls so that an individual can start to make some progress on whether it's restoration of his family relationships, restorations of relationships within the community. But until those 2 things are answered, it's really difficult to make any progress. So we've chosen to meet somebody at a point of real need, which is employment, with the intent that what we really want to do is to build a relationship and to put healthy people in individuals' lives, individuals who can journey alongside people through making some of the tough decisions that they make, that they have to make to be successful in life.
This sounds like a very interesting ministry, because I know when people are released from prison, that is the one thing they struggle with.
Absolutely.
Is finding employment. And if they don't find meaningful employment, they lose hope, and then many times they repeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the recidivism rate nationally hovers right around 50%. In Michigan, it's 32%, I believe. Ottawa County is around 11%, and we've found that individuals who go through our program, if they make it to a point of getting matched with a mentor and getting a job, our recidivism rate is only 6%.
Brian, what led you to get involved with this ministry?
Well, for me, it was a personal journey. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I got into recovery in the late 80s. And what I started to notice was that the recovery meetings that I was going to, it was filled with people who are on the fringe of society, so to speak, people who are just making it, just getting by. For me personally, I was what's referred to as a high bottom drunk. Hadn't lost a lot of things yet. I messed up my marriage, and I liked to drive after I'd been drinking. I was one of those individuals that thought that I drove better after I had a few beers. Unfortunately, the state of Michigan did not agree with me on that. So, but that's kind of what led me to this. And then in 2005, the pastor of our church, where we were doing this recovery ministry, really connected the dots between the reentry world and the substance abuse world. And that's kind of how we got into that. I was very comfortable. I had a good career at another company, but I knew that God was calling me to something different, and I took the plunge in 2009 and came on staff with 70 times 7 at that time.
Brian, talk to us about some of the mentoring courses that those who are involved in the ministry do with their mentors. What are some of the coursework? What's the process like?
Yeah, so if somebody's interested in mentoring for us, the first thing we do is we'll sit down with them and kind of interview them and find out what their motives are to make sure that they're really interested in journeying alongside somebody and not necessarily jumping into somebody's life and fixing them. Because some people, that's really what they want to do, and that's really not what mentoring is. We have a saying that we use quite a bit that if I'm working harder on your problems than you, then we have a different problem. At the end of the day, we're working with adults. They need to make their own decisions. We can be there to answer their questions and to offer them guidance if that's what they're looking for. So a mentor would come to us, and we would run them through. We have a three-session orientation training. We talk a little bit about the logistics of 70 times 7, how they're going to get a job, and they're going to get this, and then the things that you can help them with. We spend a lot of time talking about generational poverty. Most of the individuals that we are working with come from generational poverty, and we help the mentors understand that individuals who live in generational poverty typically make decisions based on different priorities than people from the middle class do, or from the upper middle class. And we need to understand that, because otherwise it can drive somebody crazy and get you very frustrated. So we spend a lot of time on that. We also do some role playing with different situations that come up. A lot of the mentors that we have don't understand the challenges associated with the correction system. When individuals are on supervision, there's tethers, there's court fines, there's fees, there's curfews, all that kind of stuff. So we help the mentors understand that you have to work within some of the guidelines that are established by the Department of Corrections. You don't have the freedom to do some of the things or you might do things that you don't really think of as issues, but they really are. So those are the types of things that we do in the initial training. Then also every month we have what we call ongoing training, and that's usually by topic. And that's open to anybody who's mentored with us in the past or is currently mentoring with us, but it's based on different topics that are usually relevant, things like substance abuse, things like budgeting, things like parole and probation, understanding what parole and probation is and how they function. So we do that once a month as well.
So your mentor is meeting with his mentee basically once a month? Is that?
No. They meet every week.
They meet every week, okay. And do they go to classes together, or is it just a one-on-one conversation? What does this look like? It's
one-on-one. We kind of say that you take the first 6 months just to get to know each other and to build up some trust. And then you start, working on some things together. Like, let's say getting your license back is a priority. The mentor might help with that, with some of the logistics of that. Getting a budget in place and in order is always a critical one, and oftentimes a mentor can help with that. Navigating some difficult family relationships, a mentor can help with that as well. Oftentimes, there's always more than one victim. There's a victim that the crime was committed against, if it truly was a victim crime, but then there's the family of the person. Oftentimes they've been put in, at best, awkward situations to just downright bad situations when a person gets incarcerated and goes away. Oftentimes when a person gets out, there's resentment, some unforgiveness that needs to happen, maybe a lot of trust issues, especially if there's substance abuse involved, where, the family members are saying, yeah, I don't know if I trust you yet. So the mentor can help a person navigate that, because, people, it's kind of fight or flight is your normal response. So the person may just avoid those family relationships. And oftentimes there's children involved, and these kids need dads and moms in their lives. So.
Okay. Well, Brian, we're going to take a break, and when we come back from our break, we're going to continue to talk about 70 times 7, and looking forward to hearing more about this wonderful ministry. So see you back in a few minutes.
At Crossroad Bible Institute, we are committed to helping people in prison develop relationships with Jesus Christ. By correcting Bible study lessons and writing letters of encouragement, CBI instructors participate in this ministry in a safe and secure way. For more information or to sign up to become a CBI instructor, please visit us at cbi.fm on the web.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. Today we're talking with Brian Vork. He is the Executive Director of 70x7 Life Recovery. And Brian, we've been discussing this ministry and how you walk alongside of those who are trying to reintegrate into society and having a mentor walk alongside of them. But a significant part of this ministry is helping someone find a job.
Yep.
And I'm curious, how does that work?
Well, what we do is an individual comes to us, basically they're always saying, I need a job. And that's kind of the carrot that gets them involved with us. We have a 4-week vetting process that we use to really give them the opportunity to demonstrate that they're committed, that they've changed, that they can be consistent for employment. And our partnering employers love it because it really it helps them weed out people who maybe aren't that serious, who aren't that ready for change yet. So what happens with an individual, they come to us looking for employment. What we do is we run them through a 2-week, every day, 4 hours a day, training called Jobs for Life. Jobs for Life focuses on character development. What we've found over the years is the reason people were losing their jobs is not because they can't run a CNC machine or a TIG welder. It's because they don't show up, they don't have a good attitude, or maybe they're involved in substance abuse, in their substance abuse issues. So what we did is we found this curriculum called Jobs for Life that really focuses on being a good employee, the things that you need to do to be successful in any job. So we have individuals go through that. Then during that time, there's also a piece called Serving Together, which is what we call group mentoring. That involves volunteering at in Holland, we've got 3 church sites. And what they do is they basically work alongside a group mentor 4 or 5 hours a day. And it's really not about getting the building cleaned. It's really about building a relationship.
Yes.
And developing trust. And we use we tell them this is an opportunity for you to apply the skills that you're learning in Jobs for Life. So they go through that over the course of 4 weeks. At the end of that 4 weeks, then they go into our employment pool. And then what we do is we place them through our staffing company. We have a staffing company that falls under the umbrella of 70x7 called New Day Staffing. And at that point in time, they go into our employment pool. They're assigned a one-on-one mentor, like we talked about earlier. And then we have about 35 partnering employers in Holland that we work with. And we'll place them at one of those partnering employers.
So 35 employers are partnering with you? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And we've got 7 or 8 so far in Muskegon, and we've got about 5 or so in the Grand Haven area as well. So, and these are employers that have recognized 2 things. First of all, the 4-week vetting process really gives them a better employee. But they also, most of our employers that really buy into this recognize that this is about, giving somebody a second chance and about, restoration and providing hope for individuals. So employers really value what we're doing on the front end to help individuals be successful long-term in their employment.
Can you talk to us about some stories of people that you've really walked alongside of and you've seen amazing things happen?
Sure. Just to let you know, like this year alone, we've worked with probably close to 150 individuals. Most come from very broken families. Most come from situations where, I always tell people, we don't really work with really evil people. Most of the people that we work with they're lost. They don't know how to navigate life, and it's mostly because they weren't shown. And we just assume, coming from relatively healthy backgrounds, that everybody knows how to make good decisions, and that's just not the case for a large number of people in society. And a couple of stories I'll share. We had a lady that we were working with several years ago, and she just wasn't ready yet. And so she ended up going, not really doing what we had asked. She ended up going back to prison and got out about a year or so ago. And she came back to us, and this time she was ready. And, she did everything that we needed. Oftentimes their living situations are difficult. A lot of places won't rent to individuals who have felonies. And a lot more places, if you have a criminal sexual conduct on your record, you have to be 1,000 feet from any schools or that type of thing. So it's even more challenging for them to find housing. So she had come to us, but this time she was ready. And we placed her in employment. She gradually worked her way back into a healthier financial situation. She's been meeting with her mentor for almost a year now, and she's making good choices and starting to get back on track and get all her obligations completed to the system, to the Department of Corrections system. And she's doing incredibly well. She's now at a point now where we're actually looking at having her start to mentor somebody else. So we had another individual that it was crazy. This individual had some of the most heinous crimes I've ever heard, but he went away for a long, long time, and he came out completely a changed man. He goes, there was evil in me at that point in my life. He actually he ended up at a church in Hudsonville, had taken him under their tutelage and under their guidance, was working at an organization there in Hudsonville, and now he's actually going around the country sharing his story, his story of grace and restoration. But he openly shares that without 70 times 7, I wouldn't have been able to get that leg up to make it to the next. Because what people don't really understand often is that the system is very difficult to get out of once you're caught up in the legal system. So, but he goes, I never would have made it, because I know nobody would have hired me, because they would have looked at what I did and go, there is no way. It's amazing to me how many of these individuals are happy to pay taxes. And I always laugh at them, because whenever they say that, I'm so glad to pay taxes. I say, you know what, don't worry, that'll wear off.
Yeah.
That'll wear off, don't worry, that'll go away. But most of the individuals that we work with recognize that this is a second chance, and that they have an opportunity to give back to society. A lot of times we stereotype that people are in prison, they're just living off the system, they don't care, whatever the stereotype is. Fact of the matter is, most of them know I'm taking from society right now.
That I'm not giving at all.
That I'm not giving at all. And, God has created men in particular with this need to provide and this need to work. And, we hide behind different things, whether it's pride or avoidance or whatever it is. But, there's a God-shaped hole in us that part of that is actually working and providing. Guys know that. They know that something's missing in their life. And that's why employment is so critical to fulfilling what God has designed us to be, especially as far as men go. So
you talk about that hole in our heart, and there was a great theologian from many generations ago by the name of St. Augustine, who also lived kind of a crazy, rambunctious life until God grabbed his life. But he has this wonderful statement that he said, our hearts are restless until they find rest in thee, O God. And what it sounds to me like is that 70 times 7 is walking alongside of women and men, and it is introducing them to a Savior who can help them find rest.
Absolutely.
Rest from their past behaviors, rest from what they have been doing, and finding rest in Christ, a new way of life, so they can move forward. And then walking alongside of them. And as you were talking, I was thinking about my own life. You know, I grew up in a great home. I grew up with a great mom and dad. I grew up in privilege.
Yep.
But when I look at my life, what do I notice? At certain segments in my life, people have walked alongside of me. They mentored me. They discipled me.
Yep.
They helped me move forward. And where would I be today if it wasn't for those individuals? That's what 70 times 7 is doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was very blessed early on to be mentored by a very, very godly man. And I always tell people the first 7 years of me being developed to do this type of ministry was all about rejection. Learning to just do the next right thing and leave the results up to God. Because he shared with me, he goes, you know that the average individual needs to have the gospel presented to them 7 times before they'll make a commitment. And he would always say, are you willing to be number 5? So we never recognize, we don't know what God is doing, and that the seeds that we're planting now, we may never see the fruits of that, but it's our responsibility to walk alongside individuals where they're at, not knowing where God is leading them. I always tell people, because it can get very frustrating to walk alongside somebody who's making bad decisions. And it's always, we always have to say, remember, there's three things in the equation here. There's you, there's them, and there's God. And your responsibility is just to show them the right way. It's their response. It's between them and God where this thing leads.
Our responsibility is to be faithful and to keep presenting the truth of the gospel in being Christ followers, walking alongside of people. And you're correct. We could be number 2, we could be number 5. Every once in a while, God might allow us to be number 7.
Absolutely.
Where we actually have the privilege of bringing the person to Christ.
Yep.
Brian, I know our listeners might want to find out more information about this ministry. Is there a website that they can go to find out more information about 70 times 7?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to www.70x7liferecovery.org, or you can just do a Google search for 70 times 7, and our name is always the first one that comes up.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you for being with us, and I pray for God's blessings for your ministry. And is there any prayer request, one prayer request you would like our listeners to hear?
I just pray that, I ask that you would pray for the men and women who we serve, that they would come to us with an open, receiving heart, that they could hear the truth and receive the truth.
Okay. Well, we will pray for that.
Great.
So, thank you, Brian. Thanks for being with us, and God's blessings for you.
Thank you.
And for all of you, we're grateful that you listened to this episode of Crossroad Connection. And until next time, may you see God's grace at work in your life in amazing ways. God bless.